Every spring, thousands of backyard fruit trees across America bloom perfectly, and every single one of them is about to fail. Not because of drought, not because of disease, not because of anything the weather did, because of something the owner is doing right now, today, without even realizing it. And the worst part? They'll do it again next year, and the year after that, and that tree will keep blooming and keep producing nothing for the rest of its life, unless someone tells them the truth. That truth is what this video is about. If you have a fruit tree that flowers but never fruits, or one that just sits there year after year doing absolutely nothing, you need to watch this entire video. Because the mistake I'm about to describe is quiet, it's invisible, and it is almost certainly happening in your yard right now. If you grow fruit trees, make sure you subscribe. We break down exactly these kinds of problems so your garden actually produces what it's supposed to. Here's something that stops most backyard growers cold when they first hear it. A fruit tree that's growing fast, long, healthy shoots, thick green leaves every spring, looking strong and vigorous. That tree looks like success, but that tree is failing. And here's the reason nobody talks about. A fruit tree can only spend its energy one of two ways. It can grow more wood, more leaves, more branches, or it can reproduce, build flower buds, bloom, set fruit. It cannot do both at full speed. When a tree tips into what's called over-vigor, growing too fast, too aggressively, it funnels everything into vegetative growth. And the process that creates flower buds gets completely, silently shut down. No flower buds, no blossoms, no fruit. Now here's the part that catches people completely off guard. The number one cause of this problem is not something you're doing to the tree. It's what you're doing to your lawn. Think about the last time you fertilized your grass. Most homeowners do it at least once a year. High nitrogen formula, because that's what makes grass thick and green. Perfectly reasonable for a lawn. But watch what happens to the fruit tree growing nearby. Fruit tree roots don't stay under the tree, they spread outward, well past the edge of the canopy, sometimes 15 to 30 feet in every direction. And nitrogen moves through soil when it rains, traveling right into that root zone. Your fruit tree is absorbing that lawn fertilizer whether you intended it or not. And here's what excess nitrogen does to a fruit tree. It locks it in a permanent juvenile state. A biological mode where the tree is convinced it still needs to grow bigger before it reproduces. The chemistry that triggers flower bud formation never switches on. So the tree grows, and sometimes it even pushes out flowers, but fruit set fails, because the tree was never truly ready to reproduce. Here's a quick test. Go outside right now and look at the new growth from last season, the shoots at the tips of the branches. Measure one. On a mature bearing fruit tree, that growth should be between 12 and 18 inches. Longer than 18 inches, your tree is in over-vigor, and the fix starts immediately. Stop applying fertilizer within at least 5 feet past the outermost edge of the canopy, not just under the tree, past the drip line. That's where the roots are feeding. That's where the damage is happening. Most growers who make this change see fruit production return within 1 to 2 seasons. But here's the thing. Over-fertilization is only half of this problem, because there is a second cause of over-vigor, and this one is going to challenge something almost every gardener believes is genuinely good practice. Pruning. Specifically, the way most people prune. Here's the part nobody expects. When you cut a branch partway back, which is what most people do every winter, you are not calming the tree down. You are triggering one of the most aggressive growth responses in the entire plant kingdom. That technique is called a heading cut. And the moment you make it, the hormonal signal that was keeping the side buds dormant disappears. Every single bud along that branch wakes up at once and sends up fast vertical shoots straight toward the light. You've seen them, those wild, whippy stems that appear overnight after a heavy pruning. Those are called water sprouts. And they are consuming the stored energy your tree was supposed to be using to build flower buds for next spring. The more you prune this way, the more water sprouts. The more water sprouts, the less energy for flowering. and the cycle repeats, year after year, while the grower keeps pruning harder, thinking that's the solution. Here's what actually works. Remove the entire branch, all the way back to where it connects to the trunk or a larger branch. That's called a thinning cut. It doesn't trigger the same hormonal chaos. The tree stays balanced, and it keeps building the slow, stubby growth structures called fruiting spurs, which is exactly where apples and pears produce their flowers. If you've been aggressively heading your apple or pear tree every winter, you may have been eliminating the very structures it needs to bloom. Switch to thinning cuts, pull back the nitrogen, and for most over-vigorous trees, fruiting returns. But what if your tree's growth looks completely normal, and it still doesn't produce? This is where the diagnosis gets more interesting, because the next cause is one that most gardeners never even think to check. Picture this. Your tree is covered in blossoms. Full bloom, every branch loaded with flowers. You think this is finally the year. 3 weeks later, every single flower has dropped. Not a single fruit anywhere on the tree. Look closely at what's happening here, because this failure has nothing to do with the tree's health. It's a pollination problem, and it's hiding in plain sight. Many of the most popular fruit trees sold at garden centers across the United States cannot pollinate themselves. Apples, pears, and most plums require a second tree, a different variety of the same species, blooming at the same time, close enough for bees to carry pollen between them. No compatible partner, no fruit, no matter how perfect the bloom looks. And plums are the most extreme example. A complete crop failure on a healthy, blooming plum tree is almost always this, and nothing else. But here's the part that trips up even experienced growers. Not all varieties can pollinate each other, even within the same species. Take sweet cherries. Bing, Lambert, and Napoleon are 3 of the most popular varieties in the country, and they are completely cross-incompatible. Plant 2 of them side by side and you will get no fruit, ever, because they cannot pollinate each other. To get fruit from a Bing cherry, you need a compatible companion, Black Tartarian, Van, or Windsor. And then there's a category that almost nobody knows about until it's too late. Certain apple and pear varieties are triploid, meaning their pollen is sterile. They cannot pollinate other trees at all. If you planted one companion variety thinking that was enough, it's not. A triploid variety needs at least 2 other non-triploid varieties nearby for the whole orchard to function. This information is almost never on the tag at the garden center, and it's one of the most common reasons people spend years waiting for fruit that was genetically impossible to begin with. Now, even if your pollination setup is perfect, there is one more thing that can destroy your entire fruit set in a single night. And most gardeners only find out about it after it's already happened. During bloom, when the flowers are open and the reproductive structures inside them are exposed, temperatures below 29 degrees Fahrenheit will kill them. Here's the part that makes this so deceiving. The petals look completely fine. The flower stays on the branch. It looks healthy from the outside, but if you cut one open and look at the center, the pistil, it will be black. Dead. The flower is a shell. Bees can visit it all day. Pollen can land on it perfectly. It will never produce fruit. One night below 29 degrees during bloom can wipe out an entire season. And where you planted your tree determines how exposed it is to this risk. Cold air is heavier than warm air. On calm, clear nights, it flows downhill and pools in low spots, depressions the base of slopes, corners sheltered from wind. If your fruit tree is in one of those low areas, it is sitting in a cold air pool every clear spring night. Planting on a gentle slope or elevated ground where cold air can drain away freely gives dramatically better frost protection, and it costs nothing. For cold climates, and this surprises people, areas that consistently drop below -15 degrees Fahrenheit in winter can kill dormant flower buds on stone fruits entirely. The tree comes through winter looking healthy. It leaves out normally in spring, but there are no flowers because the buds never survived January. If your peach or cherry consistently fails to bloom at all, not dropping fruit, not failing to set, but genuinely not blooming, winter budkill is the likely answer. And the only real solution is selecting varieties specifically rated hardy for your climate zone. Here's one that almost nobody connects to fruit production, until they've already lost a full season because of it. Some trees produce a massive crop one year, and then absolutely nothing the next. Not a single flower, not one piece of fruit. And the year after that, the massive crop comes back. This is called biennial bearing. And it's driven entirely by hormones inside the fruit itself. When a tree produces a very heavy crop, the developing seeds release high levels of a hormone called gibberellin. And gibberellin, at high concentrations, actively suppresses flower bud formation for the following season. Fruit trees build next year's flower buds during the summer of the current year. A summer flooded with gibberellin from a heavy crop means the tree builds almost no buds, and the following spring, nothing blooms. The fix is fruit thinning, and the timing is everything. Within 2 to 4 weeks after bloom, while the young fruitlets are still small, you manually remove the excess. Leave 1 fruit per cluster, spaced a few inches apart, and pull the rest. It feels completely wrong. You're removing fruit from a tree you've been waiting on for years. But by reducing the number of developing seeds, you reduce the gibberellin signal, and you allow the tree to build flower buds for next year. Trees that are consistently thinned produce reliable crops season after season. Trees that are never thinned crash into this alternating cycle and stay there. 2 more things, and these are the ones most people never suspect. First, soil drainage. This one is almost impossible to diagnose just by looking at the tree. Fruit tree roots live primarily in the top 18 inches of soil. If that zone stays waterlogged after rain, roots can't breathe, they can't absorb nutrients, the tree becomes chronically stressed. And a stressed tree does not make fruit. It focuses everything on survival. Poorly drained soil also increases vulnerability to winter injury and root disease, damage that compounds quietly over years before the grower ever notices. If your soil stays wet for extended periods after rain, plant on a raised mound. It's a simple change that transforms long-term productivity. And keep your soil pH between 6.0 and 7.0. Outside that range, nutrients lock up chemically in the soil, unavailable to the roots even if you've been fertilizing consistently. Second, pests. Specifically, one pest that causes enormous, unexplained fruit drop in home orchards every single year, and almost nobody ever sees it. The plum curculio. It's a small weevil. You will almost certainly never spot it. But shortly after bloom, females lay eggs inside the developing young fruitlets. The tree detects the damage and drops those fruitlets before they can develop. If you've ever had a tree bloom well, appear to set fruit and then drop almost everything within a few weeks, with no visible explanation. Plum curculio is very likely what happened. It affects apples, pears, peaches, plums and cherries. Managing it requires targeted treatment in the window immediately after bloom. If fruit drop keeps happening every year and you ruled everything else out, this is worth investigating. Here's how to diagnose your tree fast. Start with age. Trees on dwarfing rootstocks typically begin bearing within 2 to 3 years. Standard rootstocks can take 5 to 8. If the tree is young, wait. If the tree is mature, measure last season's shoot growth. Over 18 inches means over vigor. Cut nitrogen, switch to thinning cuts. Normal shoot growth, but no fruit. Cut open the flowers after any cold snap near bloom. Black center means frost damage. Evaluate your site for cold air pooling. Abundant healthy bloom, but zero fruit set. Check your pollination setup. Compatible variety nearby? Overlapping bloom times? Confirm whether any of your trees are triploid. Heavy crop one year, nothing the next. Start thinning fruit within 4 weeks of bloom. Fruit dropping weeks after bloom with no obvious cause? Look into plum curculio. Soil staying wet? Raise the planting site and check pH. That's the whole diagnostic. Work through it in order and you will find the answer. Your tree is not hopeless. It's receiving the wrong signals. Change what it's being told. And it will produce. If this video finally gave you the answer you've been looking for, drop a comment below and tell me which cause it was. I want to know what clicked. Like this video if it helped. It genuinely makes a difference in getting this information in front of more growers who need it. And subscribe if you aren't already. You don't want to miss what's coming next.